you ready to get into some really cool graphics tech?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
I think this is going to be a really fun one.
Yeah.
We're talking about Nvidia's new RTX neural texture compression,
Okay.
NTC.
Uh-huh.
And it has the potential to, like, completely change how games look.
Wow.
And we're going to be breaking down this awesome article from Tom's Hardware
Okay.
with some benchmark results.
All right.
And the big thing here, the big promise, is up to 96% less VRAM usage.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's huge.
massive.
Yeah.
But there might be a catch.
Okay.
Some folks are worried about the performance impact, so let's
Okay, let's get into it.
yeah, let's get into it.
So to understand why this is such a big deal,
Yeah.
we got to talk about textures.
Okay.
You know how games have those incredibly detailed surfaces
Uh-huh.
that make everything look so realistic?
Yeah.
Those are textures.
Right.
And they just eat up a ton of VRAM.
Yeah.
So NTC is like this super smart way to like shrink those textures way down
Right.
without losing quality.
Oh, wow.
So that your graphics card can handle
Oh, okay.
even more visual awesomeness.
It's kind of like zipping up like a file on your computer.
Yeah,
Like a giant file, but for game graphics.
that's a great analogy.
Okay, cool.
And what's really cool is that NTC uses AI
Oh, wow.
and those special tensor cores
Okay.
that are on Nvidia's RTX graphics cards.
Uh-huh.
So instead of like those old school methods that have been around forever,
Right.
NPC has these AI algorithms that figure out how to compress and decompress the textures
Oh, cool.
on the fly.
Wow.
It's like having a tiny artist in your graphics card,
Okay.
making sure those textures always look their best.
That's pretty awesome.
It is pretty cool.
So it sounds way more advanced than like block truncation coding or BTC,
Exactly.
which has been used forever.
Yeah, BTC has been the standard since like the 90s.
Oh, wow.
But NTC is the first major like leap forward we've had in a long time.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
The Tom's Hardware article highlighted some benchmark tests
Right?
from CompuSemble,
Right.
and they found that NTC can reduce VRAM usage by up to 96%.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's almost like getting rid of textures altogether.
It really is.
So what does that actually mean for like someone playing a game?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
If your graphics card isn't like struggling
Right.
to handle all those textures,
Yeah.
it can focus on other things.
Okay.
Like making the game run smoother
Uh-huh.
or rendering even more detailed scenes.
That like
It could mean the difference between like a choppy experience
Yeah.
and a super smooth one.
Oh, that'd be great.
Right.
Yeah.
And plus, it could potentially pave the way for
Okay.
even more like visually stunning games in the future.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So this NTC has two modes they tested,
Okay.
transcoded to BCN
Right.
and inference on sample. What's the difference?
That's a good question. So transcoded to BCN basically takes the new NTC textures
Okay.
and converts them into the older BCN format when the game loads up.
Oh,
It's kind of like translating a book into a different language
right.
so that more people can read it.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And then inference on sample is the one that like really pushes the limits.
That's the one.
Oh.
It's super clever.
Right.
Because it only decompresses the specific parts of a texture that you're seeing on your screen
Oh, wow.
at any given moment.
So the
Like your graphics card is saying,
okay.
okay, I only need this tiny piece of the texture right now, so I'll just
Uh-huh.
unpack that and save myself some effort.
Oh, that's pretty smart.
And that's how it achieves those crazy VRAM savings,
Oh, wow.
up to 96%.
But there's a trade-off, right?
There is.
Okay.
This real-time decompression takes processing power,
Uh-huh.
and that can lead to some performance hiccups.
Okay.
The benchmarks showed some frame rate drops,
Right.
especially with that inference on sample mode.
Yeah. And the comments on that article were pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
People,
Yeah.
some people were worried about the performance hits.
Yeah, huh?
Like one person said
Yeah.
that it might not be as bad if you're not trying to run the game at super high frame rates.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of gamers are only aiming for around like 60 frames per second,
Right.
and the benchmarks were run at much higher rates.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact might not be as noticeable in like typical gameplay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another commenter pointed out that the benchmarks compared NTC to textures that weren't compressed at all.
Right.
But in reality, games already use compressed textures.
They do.
So the real-world VRAM savings
Yeah.
might not be quite as dramatic
Right.
as that 96% figure.
But it's still likely to be significant, though.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
Even with those concerns, NTC's potential is pretty mind-blowing.
I know. It's really exciting.
I mean, imagine the possibilities.
I know, right?
It's like opening a door to a whole new world of visual fidelity in games.
It really is.
And the craziest part is it seems to work even on older graphics cards.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
That's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild.
Okay, so we've established that NTC is like potentially this huge leap forward.
Right.
But it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
There are some performance concerns.
Uh-huh.
And the tech seems to work differently depending on your setup.
Right.
The benchmarks even found like some quirky things happening with DLSS.
Yeah.
What was going on there?
So those results with DLSS were particularly interesting.
Okay.
It seems like using both NTC and DLSS at the same time can actually create a bottleneck.
Okay.
Because they both rely heavily on those tensor cores.
Hold on. For those of us who don't speak fluent GPU,
Yeah.
can you back up and explain like what DLSS and tensor cores are?
You got it.
Okay.
Imagine you're playing a game.
Yeah.
And everything looks a bit blurry.
Right.
Because the resolution is low. Uh-huh.
DLSS swoops in like a superhero
Okay.
and uses AI to upscale the image,
Right.
making it look sharper and more detailed without needing as much horsepower from your graphics card.
So it's like magic for making games look better.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And the tensor cores are like the specialized workers
Okay.
in your graphics card's factory
Right.
who are really good at AI tasks like DLSS.
Okay.
They're the key to making this magic happen.
So back to the bottleneck.
Yeah.
If NTC and DLSS both use these tensor cores,
Yeah.
they might be stepping on each other's toes.
Exactly.
Okay.
The benchmarks actually showed that at native 4K resolution,
Okay.
the game sometimes ran faster with NTC alone than with DLSS enabled,
Really?
which is counterintuitive
Yeah.
because you'd usually expect DLSS to always boost performance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like those tensor cores are working overtime,
Yeah.
and they can only handle so much at once.
That's a great way to put it.
It'll be interesting to see how Nvidia tackles this moving forward.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll find a way to better balance the workload between the tensor cores and the other parts of the GPU
Okay.
that handle like the regular graphics processing.
Speaking of making the GPU work better,
Yeah.
CompuZimble also tested NTC with something called cooperative vectors.
Right.
What are those?
So cooperative vectors,
Yeah.
or co-op vectors as some folks call them,
Okay.
are a relatively new feature in GPUs.
Right.
It's basically like enabling teamwork
Okay.
within the graphics card itself.
Okay.
So different parts of the GPU can work together more efficiently
Right.
on certain tasks,
Right.
rather than like each part doing its own thing in isolation.
So it's like a well-coordinated team instead of a bunch of individuals trying to do everything themselves.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the benchmarks showed that with NTC,
Yeah.
especially that inference on sample mode.
Ah.
These cooperative vectors make a huge difference. The frame rates were significantly better with them enabled.
So it sounds like cooperative vectors are essential for getting the most out of NTC
Yeah.
without sacrificing performance.
They seem to be like a key ingredient in the recipe for success,
Gotcha.
so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's another example of how hardware and software have to evolve together
Right.
to create those wow moments in graphics tech.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about benchmarks and numbers,
Uh-huh.
but what does all of this actually look like?
Yeah.
Will we really notice a difference
Yeah, good
when
question.
we're playing games with NTC?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we haven't seen any side-by-side comparisons of NTC
Okay.
versus traditional texture compression
Uh-huh.
in like real game footage yet.
Right.
We're all eagerly waiting to see what it looks like in action.
But if it really can deliver those massive VRAM savings
Right.
without making the game look worse,
Yeah.
the possibilities are pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, imagine game worlds
Yeah.
with textures so detailed and crisp
Uh-huh.
that they look almost photorealistic.
I'm right there with you.
Think about those vast open world games.
Yeah.
With landscapes so detailed, you could practically count the individual blades of grass.
Or character models
Yeah.
with incredibly lifelike skin,
Uh-huh.
hair, and clothing.
We might not even need ray tracing
Right.
to achieve that level of realism anymore.
Exactly.
It could be a huge leap, especially for genres like RPGs
Yeah.
or simulation games where visual fidelity is so important.
And don't forget about the potential impact on VR gaming.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Higher resolution textures
Yeah.
could make those experiences even more immersive.
It all sounds incredible.
It does.
But I keep thinking back to those skeptical comments on the Tom's Hardware article.
Yeah.
Will NTC really live up to all the hype?
Right.
Or will it be another case of technology that sounds great on paper, but doesn't quite deliver in the real world?
That's always a risk with new tech.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement,
Right.
but there's often a gap
Yeah.
between those initial promises and the reality of how things work out in practice.
I remember the early days of 3D graphics.
Yeah.
Everything looked blocky and pixelated. But over time,
Yeah.
the technology evolved.
Right.
And now we have games that look almost indistinguishable from real life.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Technology rarely gets everything right on the first try.
Right.
NTC is still in its early stages.
Huh.
And it's likely to go through many iterations and improvements before it becomes like a standard part of games.
And who knows what other cool innovation
Yeah.
might emerge along the way.
It's definitely a fascinating time to be following the world of graphics tech.
Yeah.
There's so much happening, and the
Definitely.
possibilities seem endless.
Okay, so we've covered the potential of NTC, the benchmark results,
Right.
the performance concerns, and the skepticism.
Yeah.
What's next in our deep dive?
Well, I think it's time we step back from the technical details
Okay.
and look at the bigger picture.
Right.
Let's explore what wider adoption of NTC could mean
Yeah.
for the gaming industry as a whole.
Okay.
How might it impact game developers, hardware manufacturers,
Right.
and most importantly, gamers like you?
That sounds like a perfect way to wrap up
Yeah,
our exploration of this game-changing technology.
I think so too.
Okay, so we've explored the nuts and bolts of NTC,
Right.
and it's clear that this tech has the potential to really shake things up.
Yeah.
But how exactly?
Yeah.
What does a future with NTC really look like?
Right.
That's what we're going to be diving into now.
I think it's fascinating to consider, NTC could be a catalyst
Okay.
for like a whole new wave of innovation in game development.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Imagine developers like being unleashed
Right.
from the constraints of VRAM limitations
So it'd be like suddenly having unlimited canvas space. Yeah.
for creating game world.
Exactly.
What kind of impact could that have on the games we play?
Well, for starters, think about open world games.
Okay.
Imagine environments so vast and intricate that you truly feel lost in them.
Wow.
Picture like forests so dense
Okay.
you can barely see the sky through the canopy,
Oh, wow.
with every leaf and branch rendered in stunning detail.
Or picture like a bustling city
Yeah.
where each building has unique architectural details. Every
yeah.
street sign tells a story.
Right.
Every alleyway feels like a place worth exploring.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And it's not just about like the sheer size and scope
Okay.
of the world.
Right.
NTC could also enable developers
Yeah.
to use like much higher resolution textures
Okay.
than what's currently possible.
So we're talking about characters
Right.
with lifelike skin textures, clothing with intricate stitching and fabric details,
Yeah.
and objects that look so real you can practically feel their surface just by looking at them.
It could really blur the lines between reality and the virtual world,
Yeah.
leading to a level of immersion
Wow.
we've never experienced before.
But it's not just about the visuals, is it?
Right.
We were talking earlier about how NTC frees up VRAM. Couldn't developers use that extra capacity
Yeah.
to make games smarter and more complex?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Imagine games with AI opponents
Okay.
that learn your playstyle and adapt their tactics,
Oh, wow.
creating a truly challenging and dynamic experience.
So, like, they really learn how you play.
Yeah.
And then they change how they play against you to
Exactly.
make it harder.
It would make the game so much more interesting.
That's really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Or think about like physics systems
Okay.
that simulate real-world interactions with incredible accuracy, leading to gameplay that feels more grounded and believable.
It sounds like NTC could open up a whole new dimension of possibilities. Not just in terms of how games look, but also how they play and feel.
Yeah, it's really exciting to think about. Okay, so now let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's focus on the hardware side of things.
All right.
If NTC becomes widely adopted
Uh-huh.
and games start requiring less VRAM,
Okay.
what could that mean for graphics cards?
I'm curious about that too.
Yeah,
Could it lead to more affordable GPUs?
possibly.
Okay.
Making those high-end gaming experiences
Right.
accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Because right now they're so expensive.
They are. It's crazy. If VRAM becomes less of a bottleneck,
Yeah.
GPU manufacturers might focus on other areas of performance,
Okay.
like faster processing speeds or more powerful ray tracing capabilities,
Uh-huh.
without driving up the cost as much.
Or maybe we'll see a trend towards smaller, more energy-efficient graphics cards.
Yeah.
That can still deliver those amazing visuals.
Right.
Thanks to the efficiency of NTC.
That would be a game changer for laptops and mobile devices.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We could see a new generation of super slim game-in laptops
Yeah.
that don't compromise on performance or visual quality.
That would be awesome.
And don't even get me started on the possibilities for handheld gaming devices.
Oh, man, that's going to be crazy.
I know, right?
What about consoles?
Oh, yeah.
Could NTC have a major impact on the console market?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It could be huge for console developers.
All right.
Imagine being able to create games that look just as good, if not better,
Right.
than what we see on high-end PCs today,
Right.
all within the confines of a console's fixed hardware.
So next generation consoles
Yeah,
could be capable of pushing visual boundaries we never thought possible.
right.
And it'd be thanks in part to this clever texture compression technology.
It really is mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. Yeah.
But as with any groundbreaking technology,
Yeah.
there are always potential hurdles and concerns to consider as NTC becomes more widespread.
That makes sense. Yeah. What are some of the things we should be mindful of?
Well, one concern is the potential for increased complexity
Okay.
in game development.
Mhm.
Integrating NTC into existing game engines
Right.
and optimizing it
Yeah.
for all the different hardware configurations out there
Right.
could be a significant challenge for developers.
Yeah, that's true. And let's not forget about the performance impacts we discussed earlier.
Right.
While NTC promises to reduce VRAM usage,
Yeah.
it does add another layer of processing
Uh-huh.
that could potentially strain some GPUs,
Right.
especially those without those dedicated tensor cores.
It's going to be crucial for NVIDIA to continue optimizing NTC
Yeah.
and work closely with game developers to
Oh.
ensure that it's implemented smoothly and effectively
Right.
without sacrificing performance or visual quality.
And as gamers,
Yeah.
we need to stay informed
Yeah,
and understand the potential trade-offs.
exactly.
No technology is perfect. And NTC is no exception.
Mhm.
It's always a balancing act
Yeah.
between pushing boundaries
Right.
and ensuring a smooth and enjoyable experience for everyone.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
an exciting time to be following this technology,
Yeah,
and I'm eager to see how it evolves and shapes the future of gaming.
me too.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive
Yeah.
into RTX neural texture compression,
Uh-huh.
what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
Yeah.
What's the one thing you want them to remember about this potentially game-changing tech?
I think the most important thing is to stay curious and open-minded.
Okay.
NTC is still in its early stages,
Right.
and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of its potential.
Yeah.
Who knows what amazing advancements are just around the corner?
It's a thrilling time to be a gamer and a technology enthusiast.
I agree.
Maybe we'll look back on this moment
Yeah.
as the beginning of a new era of visual fidelity in games,
Uh-huh.
all thanks to the power of AI
Right.
and the ingenuity behind NTC.
Well said. I, for one, can't wait to see what the future holds.
And neither can we. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Yeah, thanks for having me.
into the world of RTX neural texture compression. We hope you learned something new and are just as excited about the possibilities as we are.
Yeah, me too.
Until next time, happy gaming.
Happy gaming.